Yellow. I wanted to chat to you via video because I thought I could share it to my YouTube and therefore have others who are going through this phase on their ADHD journey, watch it as well. But I am just chatting to you, so yeah. I'm not chatting to an audience as such. I just wanted to just put it on you, have the opportunity to put on YouTube as well, because it could help others as well. So some time ago you asked me, I guess, a little bit more about the ADHD journey, because you're at a point right now where you think you might be. Some of the testing, online quizzes and stuff have come up at like 50-60% potentiality, and you're in this phase of doubt. So having now been aware of my own ADHD for 4 years, August just gone, and therefore having learned a lot, not just about my own ADHD, but tidbits about general ADHD or how others experience ADHD or what's known out there about ADHD, etc., etc., etc. I can tell you that it is a very, very normal phase to go through what you're going through. So whether you actually have ADHD or not, this phase of the ADHD journey seems to be common across the board. And I will tell you now also that even 4 years on, after discovering my own ADHD, even 2 years on after being diagnosed with ADHD, I still experience this level of doubt about whether I really do have ADHD or not. Unfortunately, it again is a common thread, a common experience to always come back to that doubt. By the very nature of having an ADHD brain, we therefore always experience that. And I have found in my own journey that I've always got to try and remind myself that I really do have ADHD, that I'm not 100% normal, for lack of a better explanation there, and that it's okay. So let's talk about where you're at, which is that you're really not sure at this point. You may or may not have ADHD. Now, that is absolutely a valid and worthy experience to sit in and to accept that you may or may not have ADHD. Because coincidentally, many of the ADHD symptoms, this is some sort of just professional knowledge that's out there, many of ADHD symptoms are similar to PTSD or CPTSD, symptoms. People who come from trauma, whether they have CPTSD or PTSD or not, also can exhibit similar symptoms. And then at the end of the very day, people who are very, very, very stressed without having any of those things can also present with similar symptoms to ADHD. So that makes it really difficult, 100%, to know 100% whether you are, whether you have ADHD or whether you don't, which is really annoying. Because I swear no other mental health or brain biological type of conditions are as difficult, I would think. You know, I'm no professional psychologist here, but I would say that with other kinds of mental disorders, such as, say, schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is like one that's going to be really, really obvious that you either have or you don't. You either get the visual or auditory hallucinations or you don't. It's almost really cut and dry. What can get confusing there is if somebody has schizophrenia as well as something else like bipolar. And then we've got sort of these number of symptoms acting together. So that is from my psychology studies from back in the day. When someone has one or more mental conditions, it can make it really tricky to diagnose exactly what that person has. So then you hear of people who maybe in childhood got diagnosed with one thing, and then they got re-diagnosed in their later teen years as having something else, and then in adulthood they've discovered that they've actually got something else entirely, or maybe they do have the first thing that was diagnosed in childhood, but not the second thing, but it's this third thing, and these two are working together and all of that. Now, with ADHD in and of itself, on its own, is, from what I can gather, difficult to diagnose to begin with, especially by the time a person has reached adulthood, and especially for women, especially for girls. So that's what makes it really hard, and I really relate a lot to the phase you're going through right now. And of course I relate to it because I do still experience this from time to time. Sometimes I feel like I'm just kind of fooling people in a way, even though I talk about my ADHD with you, of course. I've put the odd video on my YouTube just to put it out there, I don't know, because it could help someone. But I don't tend to talk about it like a whole lot with most people. And yet I still feel like some of this imposter syndrome. That's very, very inherent to the human experience anyway. Most people would experience that no matter what. We all do. But yeah, I do feel like sometimes I feel like I'm fooling the whole world by admitting to my ADHD. So I know that you also said that you weren't sure whether you wanted to go down the path of actual diagnosis. Yes, it does cost a lot of money. here in Australia. There also seems to be various pathways to get to that diagnosis. And I kind of regret paying the money that I did. The only reason why I ended up paying the money was because I knew no better. And also because I wanted to put myself through the ringer, so to speak, before I ever considered putting the child through any testing or any appointments and stuff like that. But I found out long after I was diagnosed that apparently you're better off getting your child diagnosed first, because inevitably, if a child gets diagnosed, inevitably the parent, one or both parents end up getting kind of like an automatic diagnosis. This is like total everyday layman's talk here. It's not the reality. It's just that what ends up happening, it's much easier for that psychologist who's been dealing with the child to kind of pick the same traits in one of the parents and kind of make a comment or make a recommendation to the parent that they may wish to look into diagnosis for themselves. Depending on who the psychologist is, they might have the qualifications to diagnose the parent anyway. You know, it's kind of one of those, I guess, grey areas, but as to whether that the parent of a child of ADHD ends up with a formal diagnosis or not, that's the grey area. But in the very least, those parents get feedback. So, and apparently that is the cheapest way to do it, because with a child, you would go through your doctor or through a pediatrician, depending, and then you get a referral to a psychologist. And I think the testing isn't as involved, it doesn't go for as long, and all of that. Now, my testing ended up being very, very, very expensive. I spent my last drop of savings for it, because my psychologist said to me that we would go as long as we needed with the testing. She said on average you may be finished up by about once we've completed about 6 hours of testing. But I seemed to be flying high with the testing and doing very, very well. And just kept going and going and going. And she then said, at the 9-hour mark, she said, we've done 9 hours of testing. I'm going to recommend that we stop, because otherwise this is going to cost you a lot of money. You're doing really well. I don't know how long you'll keep going for, and blah, blah, blah. So me being me at the time, I was like, okay, let's cut this short. I'm apparently doing really well. I'm not sure how great that is. Am I doing really well because I have really bad ADHD? Or am I doing really well because I don't have ADHD and I'm going to end up paying all this money? Anyways, so she then took a long time to write up a report. She finally called me in to hand me the big report, which you saw, which was like yay thick, many pages. I've ended up discovering through that I'm apparently near genius level when it comes to language and writing and expression and all of that kind of thing, which is kind of really cool to know. Apparently I'm really above average clever with maths and stuff, and I was like, that's kind of really cool to know as well, but I'm 40 years old now, so who cares? But you know, you kind of want to hear that when you're in high school and you think you're dumb, and then your parents are paying for a maths tutor for you, and your maths tutor is trying so hard to convince you that you're actually really clever. You just need to believe it for a change. But you don't believe it because all the kids at school are like rich, and they are straight A kids, and they get ducks of the school, and you are totally not that. So and then when you're the only one that can get calculus in year 11 maths just like that, while the smartest kid in the class is like struggling, you're like, coincidence, you know. That's when you want to hear that you're actually above average clever with maths and whatnot. Not when you're nearly 40 at the time, and it's not going to serve any purpose. So, the reason why I'm sharing all of that is not to show off, but to warn that really, if you ever decided to go down that way, down that path, that's a real possibility. The testing could go for a long time, and you could end up paying a lot of money. And at the end of the day, you will get an answer of whether you do or you don't. Now, when my psychologist came back and, gave me the report, she said to me that she found it really, really difficult to diagnose my ADHD because there were some things that just didn't add up. Of course, because nothing when it comes to me is ever really straightforward. It never has been, as you well know. Not medically, not anything, not psychologically, not upbringing, not career path, not anything. Anyways, so now in the end, she said to me that the way she worked out, like the way she worked out, the way she was able to kind of overcome that part of her struggle was concluding that I must have come up with many and very good self-accommodations in my lifetime, which I totally believe. I know, I like when she said that, I went, oh, well, yeah, of course I have. Like, I've had to, kind of thing. Like, so, and then since then, I've been able to think about all the self-accommodations that I do have, and I go, oh, well, yeah, I do actually do all right because I have these self-accommodations that I've kind of created since childhood for myself. But at the same time, also, I don't live the cookie cutter life that most people live because I don't hold a 9-to-5 job, and I don't have the school run to do anymore. Like, we live a very alternative lifestyle that happens to really suit my ADHD really, really well. So I see myself as living a very ADHD friendly life. So you may have come up with, say you have it, you may have come up with numerous self-accommodations as well, right? Even I might have even taught you some along the way. You know what I mean? Like, here and there in conversation, I might have gone, oh, well, this is what I do. Maybe that will help you, like, you know what I mean? You know how I am, right? I'm like, oh, well, have you thought of this? Or maybe this will help. Or, hey, this has helped me. Or whatever, however I talk. I'm always like sharing whatever I know, just because knowledge is to be shared. I enjoy sharing whatever it is that I know. I enjoy helping and stuff. And so, okay, so where I wanted to go from there was I wanted to talk about the ADHD version of masking, which I believe is vastly different to ASD masking. I have yet to come across any video on YouTube that will make that differentiation, but I am making that differentiation. The reason why I make the differentiation between ASD masking and ADHD masking is because an ASD version of masking is because the person with ADHD, and you know that I identify with a lot of ASD traits as well. So you may understand that I'm kind of coming from a personal experience viewpoint with both ADHD masking and ASD masking. I hope that I have the authority. No, not authority. I don't know, experience. That's really all it is, just personal experience to talk about this. So I find that with ASD masking, the person, or myself, I'll just talk about myself. I have literally in life, not known what the rules are at times about different things in life. What's expected under this circumstance, or what the behavioral expectations should be under that other circumstance, or when I walk through that building, what do I do? Like legit no concept of what could be done. I have experienced that actually many more times in my life than I ever realized. So and I would say that's probably one of my ASD traits. And what I have done at such times is literally observed. And I've always observed. I observed all through school, observed other kids, observed other girls, observed other, I went to uni, observed other people there. In the workforce, I observed, and just soaked up, like as in learned all the ways to be under all the different circumstances. Went to private school, I was one person. Went to state school, I was became a different person. Went back to private school, oh dear, have to kind of change now back to what it's like to be a private school kid. Then I went to uni. Well, what's cool, what's not? How to study, because it's different to studying in high school. Like, I don't know, all those things. Of course, these are things that everyone has to learn. But yeah, there's a certain part of you that just has no idea. And so you observe, and you learn, right? Then I worked in the corporate scene, and it was like, okay, let's how do people behave? Oh, this is how they behave. This is how they speak. This is what they're wearing. I'll start wearing the same thing, you know, all of that kind of thing. I am a believer to a certain extent that that's just what you need to do in life. But whatever, that's a whole other topic, I guess. Now, with ADHD masking, it's, in my experience, it's not that you have no clue as to how to behave under certain circumstances. It's more that you will just be who you are, and suddenly you're getting reactions that don't quite make sense. So it could be faces being pulled at you. It could be conversations suddenly coming to an end. It could be someone's like going, shh, like, you're being embarrassing, and you really get this sense of like, okay, whatever I just did or whatever I just said was really inappropriate. So I'm just going to dial it right back. And that's kind of like the ADHD version of masking. So you start dialing, you start muting, but you definitely know, the behavior that that was too much. And so you start muting. I feel like that light looks like a random hair sticking out of my head, so I keep looking at it. I need to cover it. There we go. Yeah, and I feel that that's very, very different to the ASD version of masking. So I wanted to talk about that as well because these self-accommodations that my psychologist told me that I have obviously come up with, and therefore made it difficult for her to actually diagnose my ADHD, is not masking. Okay, so I just wanted to talk about that in my response to you, because I know you and I have talked about masking, or like, I don't think we've really talked about it, like interacted on the topic yet. I think you've mentioned it and then I've mentioned something else about it, and sort of that's it. So I wanted to go into that part of it as well. So by the time we are in our adult years, well and truly, right? And we suddenly start thinking, oh, I think I might have ADHD, but I'm really not sure. But I might have ADHD, but I'm really not sure. But I might have ADHD, but I'm really, 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 really not sure. And I'm really not sure. It's like, so it is no wonder, okay? It's no wonder, because there's so much almost against you to begin with. Like, not only is other ADHD symptoms similar to other mental disorders or trauma or stress, but you may have developed numerous self-accommodations in your life, and therefore some of your behaviors may not be ADHD style, because you're using these self-accommodations to get through the day and through the week. Thirdly, you might actually have learned to mask when you got too much, or when if you only had ADHD, right? So, and I've only touched on three main things there. So it's no wonder that most people with ADHD would still sometimes go, do I really have it, or am I just kind of fooling everyone, Now, one of the things that helps me to just remember that I really do have it, and okay, first of all, before we even go there, why is it even important to really know whether you have it or not? Like, as in, I've been diagnosed. Why can't that be enough? I've got a full-on report from my psychologist. Why can't that be enough? Right? And still I go, do I really have it? Do I really have these needs? Or am I just being spoiled? Okay. The reason why it's important is because on top of these three things, there's society. The fourth one would be society is against all these behaviors that are actually irresponsible behaviors for a neurotypical person. But for a person with ADHD, they're not actually being irresponsible. They're just living with the brain that they do have. So but the person with ADHD goes through life being told, oh, you're so irresponsible, I'll tell you. I was irresponsible. I was impulsive. I was not organized because I would pull all-nighters to write the assignment, right? You get told you have the potential so much. You have so much potential. Why don't you live and work up to your potential? Why can't you be more like your sibling? Like, why are you so childish? Why are you so, I don't know, you were an embarrassment to us tonight, you and your hypo self. Hello, I got another phone call from the school today. What have you been up to? You're misbehaving again. And so this is also... Sadly, I relate just too much to that side of having ADHD. And so you get told a lifetime that you're just... Ultimately, you hear all the time that you're just not good enough. And you have to grow a thick skin. The thick skin comes in the form of being the funny one, being silly and embarrassing yourself and pretending that you don't care that you've just embarrassed yourself, being rebellious and defiant. Why not? You know, just all of that. Now, so when you've been brought up being told all of these things, right? Because number 4, society is against all these behaviors. By the time you're well and truly an adult, you're still operating under those beliefs. ADHD YouTubers out there, well, look, I won't say YouTubers. It's like, what's her name? Jess from How to ADHD. She talks about ableism and how we as having ADHD can be ableist towards ourselves. I personally have issues with the concept of ableism in the first place, because being able to is not a crime. So why are we making ableism like a really bad thing? I have no idea. I think I could understand it if there's someone in a wheelchair being expected to get up and walk. 100%, that's ableism in a really bad way. But when it comes to ADHD, yeah, I'm a bit on the fence about that. Because there are accommodations that we can learn, being one that has been told that I have come up with all these self-accommodations. But even if someone hasn't been one to come up with self-accommodations, and if they can get the support they need from their psychologist, and through therapies and all of that, through like counseling and that, they can also learn accommodations. Like there's things that I've had to learn. I've had to learn things like how to move, as you know, how to move the furniture around in my house so that I can be better encouraged to focus on what I need to focus on, whether it be cooking or whether it be working or whether it be homeschooling my child. Like it's just, you can't have everything happening all at once, which is what I was trying to do for so long. And then through my own self-understanding, I've also come to understand that I need visual I need visual calm. So as you also know, I've changed the decor of my house to where we're going to be homeschooling. The decor here is like calm and just clearer colors and more flowy patterns and things like that. And that's how I have further self-accommodated. So, where was I up to before I went on a rant about society's actually, no, backtrack. So I was talking about how Jess from How to ADHD talks about this ableism that people with ADHD, we can have towards ourselves. I'm just going to go with her version of what ableism towards ourselves with ADHD can be. Because that's yet another thing that's kind of against us. Like, we get told all our lives, but you should be able to do that. Oh, but that's so easy. Or why can everyone else do it and not you? Or, but you're so smart at this. How can you not understand that? All that kind of thing. And so these become our own self-thoughts as well. So by the time we're like, oh, I think I have ADHD, we have these 4 things that I've already mentioned totally against us. And it's no wonder, again, that we're like, oh, but maybe I don't. So, yes, that's what I wanted to talk about there. The next thing I want to talk about is like, how long is this video? 36 minutes. I probably shouldn't go too much longer. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about was why can't I think right now? ADHD mind blank. I'm just gonna pause because I have to think. Okay, I'm back. I remember now what I was going to talk about was one of the things that reminds me continually that I really do. Am I recording? Yes, I am. Okay, cool. Oh my gosh, I've done that so many times where I pause and then come back and then it just doesn't record anything. Okay, so one of the things that helps me get through isn't even the fact that I have the diagnosis, right? But it's this. It's that one of the many things that they look at when trying to get you diagnosed is whether you have had ADHD traits present from childhood. And I definitely did. Like, my report cards always said, oh, if only Alicia could concentrate better, or if only she could focus, or Alicia's got potential, but she needs to, sit quietly in class and all of that. So by the time I was in high school and just chatting away, never knowing how to just be quiet in class and being thrown out of the classroom when it got really bad, separated from my one friend in the classroom, very annoying. And all of that rubbish, that behavioral rubbish that I had to go through, by the time I got to there, really what actually happened was that it was kind of missed in primary school in the first place, because I was always the daydreamer, or I was always just not finishing work because I'm just taking so long, because I'm daydreaming, or I'm talking instead of doing my work, or I'm I wasn't so much, I don't remember being the kid that just stood up and got up and walked around the classroom all the time. I don't think that was me. I was definitely swinging in my chair though. It was always like, Alicia, stop swinging in your chair. clicking pens if I had a clicky pen. I mean, in primary school, we used pencils and stuff, but like chewing on my pencils, I guess. I don't know, things like that. So you may want to have a think, I guess, but like that's where I'm getting at. You may want to have a think about the traits that you think you might have had in childhood, because that's usually a giveaway. If you look back to your childhood and can positively say, no, I never really had any of those traits, I'm only really experiencing some of these traits now, then there's a chance that it's possibly just stress. Now, in saying that, I do have to say that it's very easy to self-accommodate or to manage your ADHD symptoms that you didn't know were ADHD. All throughout childhood, maybe even teenagehood, maybe even at uni, in your uni years, because life is so simple. Life is so simple. There's not much to worry about. You go to school, you come home, like you do your homework. You go to church on the weekend with your parents, and like everything is done for you. Your parents are cooking for you. They're making your lunches, and then maybe you do start making your own lunches at some point in high school because you just got to, and then, but how hard is that? That's not hard. Then you move out of home and you now have a bedroom to look after. And then for me, things started to really struggle, like become a struggle. And I really noticed this. I even wrote songs about it. When I realized that I no longer had just a bedroom to look after, I had a whole house to look after. That was when me and Bebe moved in together, and I realized, whoa, I have a whole house to look after. And that was overwhelming. It had me frozen many times. The housework didn't get done. The housework would. It was more like the bedroom. But just my bedroom, I was just like, I'll just chuck my clean clothes in there. Just don't worry about them later type thing. And then the kitchen and the living room were okay because, if someone comes over, at least that'll be tidy type thing. And that was kind of, I think, when I started to sort of notice that I was kind of just chasing my tail a little bit in life. And then started working full time, and again that was still fairly easy because you just go to work, come back. It's kind of like school. You just go to work, come back, and you're not home, so your home's not a great big mess. And then on the weekends you just chill out and just wash your clothes. Like that wasn't a hard life. And then, as you know, motherhood came along for me, and then I didn't so much struggle. I know you've said that I struggled through early motherhood. Oh my gosh, that was that is hilarious. You know why I was sounding like a big fat monster? Because a phone call was coming in, it was coming through, and I'm just watching my phone ring, and I'm going, the video better not have stopped on me, but I totally thought it did. So total freak out. But yeah, thankfully the video has continued. All right, I'm nearly finished. I better call the friend back. Where was I up to? Oh yeah, so I was saying, you've mentioned to me that from your perspective, it seemed as though I was really struggling. I didn't feel like I was struggling. It didn't feel like a struggle. It felt hard, of course, because isn't that motherhood? Isn't that babyhood kind of thing? I never really thought that I was in the depths of struggle at the time. pretty much not until, like I got confronted about my housework, about the house being in such a state. And only then I was like, excuse me, like I have a toddler. Like, and then I was like, also, I'm battling with depression. Like, don't we all? Like, and it wasn't till then that I sort of started going, oh, yeah, this actually really is hard for me. And again, it wasn't till the child started school and I had the school run, and at that point, I just came undone at the seams. Like, at that point, I was like, every day was an immense Everest style effort to just get in the car, pack that lunch, get the child to put her shoes on the way to school, get her to school, always late. And just every day I felt like I was scraping my skin off, like, because just that's how bad it felt. Every day I felt like I was going against every fiber of my being. And that's also when I went, I don't think I'm meant to be living this life, but I have a child of school age, so she should kind of go to school. Now, I do happen to be homeschooling now. That is not the reason why I homeschool, as you know. I thought I'd just put it in this video anyway, because I would have, if it was, I would have quit pretty early on, like within weeks, within months of the school. And but I gave it a good go for a year and a half, nearly 2 years. I think it was 2 years. Yeah, 2 years. So it should be pretty obvious that that's not why I homeschool. Oh, no, I homeschool because I want to sleep in. Yeah, I love sleeping in. So I better homeschool to sleep in. Anyways, my whole point in sharing all of that with you is that we can go so far in life. For those people who don't get diagnosed till later on in life, it's because they've managed. They either have self-accommodations or they have the good supports in place unbeknownst to them, or because they live an ADHD friendly life in the first place. And it's not till life gets just a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger and more complex and more involved that suddenly they fall at the seams. This seems to be a common experience for those who are diagnosed later in life. And that's how it happened for me. I was just really, really struggling, like just not being able to keep up with everything. And everyone was like, oh, you're doing too much. Or people were like, oh, we don't know how you do it. You must be Superwoman. We kind of see you everywhere. And I was like, yeah, you do see me everywhere. And I am organizing this and organizing that and helping over here. And I'm homeschooling my child and doing the business for my husband and doing the side hustle. And I'm doing it all. But deep down, I was like dying. I was dying. And then, of course, came across my diagnosis and I went, sigh of relief. Like, now I know. So there's that as well to keep in mind, which I think you've mentioned anyway. Now, at the end of the day, like you've said as well, there is the adage, I guess, that if you have lots of people around you with certain neurodiverse, neurodiversities, then there's an even bigger chance that you also have it, because we attract each other. I remember when I was asked that question, why they were like, why is it, do you think, that you seem to have a lot of friends on the ASD spectrum? So not even ADHD, on the ASD spectrum. And I sort of went, I think it's because they feel comfortable with me, I guess, because I'm a really open open kind of person, and I must be pretty approachable, I guess, to them. And of course, 5 years on from that conversation, I've sort of realized, well, not only am I actually diagnosed with ADHD, but I relate to a lot of ASD traits too. So there you go. So it all kind of makes sense and falls into place. So yeah, I hope that I've answered some of the questions that you might have had. I don't actually quite remember the exact conversation that we had, and of course I kept forgetting to answer and to reply, and I hope that this is overall the bits of knowledge that I've garnered along the way, and it's my experience as well, and hopefully that gives you some pointers. I'm not sure if it does. So yes. Okie dokie, I'm gonna get going. Bye bye.